If you're not trying to go 499, like you're not willing to go 8,500.
Yeah.
Like you have to be willing to like rip your heart out of your chest if you want to try and go perfect.
Yeah,
That's the brass tacks about it, right?
And in the last couple of years alone, 4 or 5 years ago, you could have like one bad day and maybe recover with a 52 or a 53. You can't now.
Heartbreaking. Welcome to episode 120 of the Drag Drive Repeat Show, presented by Summit Racing.
All right, so with that, we're going to go into our next topics, and we are going to start with what events you have attended. So we'll kind of go in the same order that we have been doing.
I guess that's me. So
Yep, we'll start with
for the big drag and drive stuff, obviously I did Hot Rod Drag Week twice in 2022 and 2023. Other than that, for drag and drives, I really haven't done any of the big events. I have put a gazillion miles on the car, quite honestly, driving it pretty much, not always, but most of the time I drive it to the track, even if I'm going to do something else. You know, recently I've been doing a bunch of like the 530, like the little gangster stuff, and Mean Street. That's pretty popular around here. Holly Springs actually has a pretty nice Mean Street program. So that's like a 510 to 530 index type deal. So you pull up into the lanes, draw a card out of the hat, and you run 510 to 530. That's what you got to run all week. So we've done that a bunch of times, where drive it to the track, run a 520 a whole bunch of times, and drive it home. And usually makes some of the race car guys upset because they're all pulling their stuff in big trucks and trailers, and they got tube chassis cars and whatever running 520s or 30s, and I drive in there with a car on pump gas and race them. So it's kind of fun,
Yeah, there's nothing better than that.
Exactly.
There has to be nothing better than that.
But yeah, I mean, definitely been doing that a bunch, and really trying to, when we showed up to Drag Week in 2022, the car literally had, I think, 4 or 5 eighth-mile passes on it, and it was a brand new car that we built. I mean, in I think October of 2021, the car showed up on my driveway as a shell. I mean, it was basically a bare chassis shell. I built the whole car in my garage by myself, engine, everything like that. Made a couple passes at Holly Springs in the 8th mile, had a boost controller issue, came back, fixed it, went back out a couple weeks later. Thought we got it dialed in pretty good to run an 850 something. I think it went 545 in the 8th or whatever. So first day of Drag Week, we showed up. It was the first quarter mile pass that we had made. It was in St. Louis, and it went 858. So it was like, okay, it's pretty close. So we just shut it down for the day, and the next day we came out, and I made a couple of strokes on the keyboard and ran it out the back door, and she went a 50 with a 5, I think. So I mean, that was pretty close. We packed up and left and went to the next racetrack. So, but certainly these cars now, I've got a lot of runs on the car, and I can dial in the thing pretty tight. I mean, 2 to 3 thou usually. I mean, if it goes like we've run a ton of like 520 stuff, and I mean, if it goes out and runs a 520 with a 5 or something like that, I can usually dial it up to a 520 with an O or a 520 with a 1 with a couple of tweaks on the boost controller, a little bit of ignition timing or something like that. So it's definitely an art for sure. And I mean, the Trances have showed us how to do it really well for sure. I mean, what they did at Hot Rod Drag Week a few times, I'm 50 with a O, several times, and a 50 average or whatever is pretty impressive, to say the least. I mean, people see it happen and they don't understand how hard that really is to do it. I'm certainly not on that level, but I can get my car dialed in pretty tight now for sure. Probably going to head back out to another drag and drive or so in the next couple of years here. Hopefully do a few more. I was actually, when you said the circuit dates and where it starts and stops, I was like, well, I work in Oklahoma City, so that makes a lot of sense to probably. I think there's a good chance we might show up to that. So don't know if we'll run the 850 deal or if we'll maybe run the small tire 8-mile deal, but we'll probably show up to that.
Yeah, we are definitely going to be involving Deechworks in the planning for the circuit. Because I mean, if we're going to Thunder Valley, you guys are right there.
30 minutes from us, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
But, yes, we'll be definitely stopping by there.
But yeah, I mean, what I've been running with my car lately is a little bit faster stuff, but definitely, the car will go out and we can dial that thing in within. I mean, if I miss the number by 100th or more, I'm mad at myself, or something happened. It's pretty cool to be able to do that. That's for sure.
Man,
with a car that you drive there and drive home.
Right. The event I have as your quickest was Drag Week 22 with an 853 average, I think.
Yeah.
I think that came day 3 or 4. You had a turbo down or something, right? I can't remember what you were doing. Something in the parking lot.
day 2, actually. We ran St. Louis, and then we ran Indy. We ran 50s on both those days. And then, when we left Indy, we started realizing that the intercooler.
All right, racers and high performance enthusiasts, are you ready to start your next engine build? If so, there is no better time than right now to check out the Mahle Motorsports all-in-one Power Pack Piston Kit. With over 1,200 applications, these kits come complete with pistons, rings, wrist pins, and clips, all designed to work together. Mahle Motorsports Power Pack Piston Kits take out all of the guesswork, so no more trying to determine if a piston will need this ring to work with a certain cylinder size. Mahle Motorsports did all that engineering so that you can get to the part that matters, which is building a power plant that leads you to victory lane. Visit MahleMotorsports.com for more details. And for our podcast listeners, Mahle is spelled Mahle.
Maybe had some oil in it, but we weren't sure exactly where it was coming from and whatever. Anyways, we made our pass on day 3, and it looked like a diesel truck going down the racetrack, and realized that, half the intercooler was full of oil. And so anyways, we kind of band-aided it up, and we made it through the rest of the week and still ran pretty good. But definitely had a little bit of a challenging time there. Basically drove the car. We unhooked all the intercooler pipes and stuff like that and just drove with the turbos blowing into atmosphere, basically, just so that it wouldn't pump oil into the intercooler. And we made it. We still, like I said, had a 53 average or whatever. And that day, I think, was maybe one of our worst runs that we had made. I think we went a 55 or a 56 that day. And I was going to run it again, but I was nervous that there was other things wrong. And so we didn't run it that day. And we probably could have tightened up the average a little bit if we would have run it again. But
2022 is a pretty good day at Byron Dragway at Hot Rod Drag Week. Wasn't it, Steve and Dustin?
Yep.
yeah.
Run to some of the events you guys have done, because y'all have done several.
We've done, I was just doing the numbers here, so I kind of forgot how after all these years. We've done 9 drag and drive events, 7 are drag weeks. We did Sick Week 1 year in 2022, I think it was. And last year we did Street and Yeet in Dustin's twin turbo F-150. But out of the 9 drag and drives, we have 6 podiums, and 3 of those are class wins. Had a pretty good bit of luck.
I would say
It's
so.
more than luck.
And we've run a lot of different things. I mean, in 2012 we had an NA Malibu with a big LS motor in it that ran in Super Street small block power adder. We finished second to Jeff McConnell there. We did NA stuff for the next couple of years with the Mustang, and we did okay. I think we did a third in 18 and a fifth in 16 and a third in 18, and then went turbo with the car from there. His truck spoiled us at Street and Yeet, though. I got to tell you, there's nothing like air conditioning, and it's got full suspension. It's a fast truck, but it's so comfortable. And you just throw your stuff in it and go and hit the road. Yeah. So you asked about Byron. Yeah, we run an 8.500 on the second pass, I think it was there. And normally, you know the drag. You hear a lot about us having to make all these passes, and some of it's true, some of it's not. And I know Brian knows this as well. You gotta keep making passes till you get the number. But typically we would run 18 to 20 something passes in an event. And in 23 we only ran 13 passes, I think it was, to get a 5.0 average in every. And I'll be honest with everybody here. I mean, I worked on the car quite a bit, did a bunch of stuff to make it really responsive to the tune-up, and there were days when we were 600 off. I'd make a small adjustment to the boost down track, and it would run the number. So that whole week, the only changes we made were to the dome pressure after 2 seconds. We never touched the rest of the car, other than resetting the shocks and getting it ready for the track. It just kind of amazed me as how responsive the car actually was, because there were days we'd roll in there and we'd run like a 600 or 700 off. And Dustin's the voice of reason a lot of times, because if I did what I would do, what I want to do, we'd always get on the other side of the number. So we always look at each other, and he's got his phone out with the weather, and we're making guesses, and it seems to work out good for us. It's a good team.
Yeah, that is one of the hardest parts about this. Is like literally you can't turn in something faster. That's kind of what I like about Street and Yeet, the way they set stuff up. Is like I think one of their classes, their DYO, you can run under and over, and like you're just trying to land on the right number or something like that. I can't remember how it's set up, but Drag Week's not like that. Drag Week's like 850 or slower.
And a lot of guys don't realize that that's the 50. That really hurts us as a group trying to do this. If we're running brackets, you can win brackets running under. I've done it hundreds of times. You can do index racing. You can run under because they only have a cap, and the other guy will run under, and it just who gets there first and plays it at the stripe. But trying to get to the 850 number, we're at a big handicap because we can only get it on one side. We were in street meet, or not street meet, but in what was the
Sick
race in
week.
Florida?
Sick week.
Sick week in
Yeah.
22, and we were battling with Aaron. And we were right there with him. He pulled out and ran a perfect number. We were right behind him in the stage lanes. We pulled out and ran a 499. It was like, and then of course it's Gainesville. We had to come back in the afternoon, and Gainesville was crap in the afternoons. And I think we made 7 passes that day and kept running a 52, changed the tune up a 52, a chip. It was like every time we added power, it would take that much out. And we didn't want to go on the other side of it because we didn't have a good ticket. Our ticket was a 499, but that was pretty much a heartbreaker too when we did that, because it would have been a lot closer had we run a 5-0 to win that class. I think we only lost by 9 thousandths or something that year. It was pretty tight.
And that's conversations like Jay and I have had on here, and we've talked about, like, if you have an off day, man, it's tough to overcome that, like, especially with like what we're going to see at drag week, the level of people that are coming to that sick week, especially to that 850. They've got 2 850 classes, have like 40 people across the 2 classes. I mean, it's very, very competitive. That's what I like about it too. But the struggle is you end up with a 52. That's a hard number to turn in.
It's a hard number to turn in, but everything we did, we would just, we'd add some power to it, but the weather was just changing so fast and so bad. We couldn't quite get there, with the thing. So anyway, it worked out. I mean, we felt we'll take a second, we're not happy about it, but we'll take it. We were there, we competed and had a good time. So we ran our most difficult race was in 21 against Rick. We were new at it. I don't know how many passes we ran. I know we got to Indy. We both ran 7 each, trying to outdo each other. It was quite a battle between us. I think the farthest we ever got away from each other during the whole week was 9 thousandths.
Man, that's crazy.
It was that tight all week. Yeah. So I think we only won by 6 thousandths. It was tight
on an average. That's across 5 days. I think that's what I like so much about this whole thing here, is because like it's a different track every day. Like Indianapolis, the U.S. Nationals this weekend. Those guys will, by the time they get to Saturday and Sunday, they'll have 10 passes on that track in every weather condition between here and Saturday to run. But drag and drive isn't like that.
Right.
Jay, Brian, what some event history for you guys?
I get this segment. I've been taking notes on the welding table here. So we debuted the car in August of 2020, so almost 5 years ago. Like within a couple weeks, it had a stock bottom end combo. It was kind of just put everything together, make sure all the hoses, lines, and all that kind of stuff all fit and worked. And so there was no like drag week was like the only thing, and it got canceled in 2020. So since 21, when we started doing drag and drives, we've got 11 national events and 5 regional events. We have 4 wins in those 4 wins in those 11 national events. Drag week, we've done 4 of those. We've podiumed twice. The 2 years we didn't podium was the first year in 21 with an SBE combo in it. And then the second time that we didn't podium was when we rebuilt the transmission at Bristol. We turned in like a 1080 that day or a 1050 that day. And then Midwest Drags, we DNF'd the first year because we blew the engine up. That was 2021. On our first pass, we lifted a cylinder head and all of the coolant pressure. So we DNF'd Midwest Drags the first year. But then the regional events, we did the circuit 3 times, and we've done Drop the Hammer twice. We've won all of the regional events we've been to.
That's badass.
Yeah. Midwest Drags 3 times, Sick Week twice, Sick Summer twice, Drag Week 4 times. That's our national event resume. And then a boatload of True Street stuff in there. I shouldn't say a boatload, 2 or 3 True Street events. And then there's some local 850 index racing that we do. Yeah, import versus domestics at Martin. And then there's a 850 deal at Mid-Michigan Motorplex that we've entered. And we've fared well. We've qualified really, really well, actually, at those events. And then, as Steve was saying, it's, you're racing the guy next to you heads up, and it's the tree, and you're pushing each other under, and you're playing games at the stripe and all that kind of stuff. A little spoiler alert, because I know you're going to talk about the 8,500 stuff. So in non-drag and drive competition, we went 8,500 with a 3 to the 10,000th at import versus domestics 2 years ago. And then actually we just did that couple weeks ago in testing. So I know that's kind of a precursor for the next segment. But yeah, so we've Midwest Drags, we went 50 with a 1 once and 50 with a 3 twice. We've been 50 with a 4. Sorry, again, I'm kind of totally stealing the next segment. But, I know Steve talked about going 499. I said to Brian, and I think it kind of hits home. It's like, if you're not trying to go 499, like you're not willing to go 8,500.
Yeah.
Like you have to be willing to like rip your heart out of your chest if you want to try and go perfect.
Yeah,
That's the brass tacks about it, right?
And in the last couple of years alone, 4 or 5 years ago, you could have like one bad day and maybe recover with a 52 or 53. You can't now.
Not happening now.
You have to turn in 50s, I think,
Yeah.
to have a chance to win a national event.
We went to like the 2018 results or 2017 results, and the second place person was like 885, and like third place was like 914.
Yeah.
This was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Like.
It's
But it's so much easier
been
to
a mid
talk about, like,
51 or
Mark
better. It's been a mid 51 or better since probably 22
Yeah.
or 21.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
got to
exactly.
be a mid 51 or better.
And Mark
to
talked
win
about
a
like
national.
making 1,200 horsepower at the crank. Like 7 years ago, I feel like 1,000 wheel horsepower was like this like echelon where it was like, oh my gosh. And now it's like, yeah, I put my combo together, only made 900, and it's like, yep, you're not good enough. Like the expectation is a 4-digit dyno sheet.
Yeah. Rovik saying 850 guys are badass. Very tough class. Can't wait to join the party.
Yeah, I wish
Oh.
there were a lot more joining the party. Bring them on.
Yes.
Well, sounds like
and-
Rovich's joining the party.
Yeah.
What's that?
This new setup of his, he'll be he'll be big block power adder with it. He won't be small block power adder like you just.
I hate
No.
it.
Derek,
Yeah.
499 runs.
Yeah.
That man, so tough. And especially for guys that are doing it and you've made this is like your third pass, your first one's a 56 or something like that. Next one you come up and you're like, oh my God, we got to run a number we can turn in, and then you go under. Man, it's just heartbreaking.
Mhm.
Yes.
I want to talk about the Bristol trip just real quick because I know it sucked to have to rebuild the trans and the pits, but listen, I feel like that's part of it. That's a story that'll live on forever, and you guys had to hang out with Paul Powell and all the stuff like
I had him
that.
like ratchet strapped to that transmission. I don't know, like I don't feel like he was getting away until it was back together.
Yeah, pretty crazy trip that time. I know it sucked, but man, to rebuild a transmission right there in the parking lot, pretty bad. A lot of other racers come in, help move, run you guys to the parts store. Parts store stayed open late. All this kind of cool stuff that went along with that.
Yeah,
So
we had a couple local guys, spectators, help us secure some parts, and the parts place we got parts from didn't even sell they were a wholesale company that sold them to me like out the back door.
But it was a guy that was on Drag Week. He's got a dark blue Colorado, and he's like, well, my shop's just up the road. And actually
Mark White and
Jeff Wilson, who are getting involved in this, they run top alcohol dragster stuff, and they're more than top alcohol dragsters.
Like
they used to run
Nostalgia
nostalgia funny car stuff. I'm about to wire a second car for Mark, actually, because they're like, we'd put 4 engines in a car in a weekend, and he's like, I'm gonna build a wagon with a twin turbo LS, and he goes, I'm gonna like cart 3 of my buddies around, and we're gonna do this drag and drive thing, So talk about someone that's gonna join the 850 power adder ranks. But yeah, there was a fortunate aspect about that. There's like this people gravitating around you to like help you, right? I mean, like we got in the hotel at 3:15 in the morning.
Wow.
Like Ryan and Tammy Hargett saved us a parking spot, and then we proceeded to get up at 5:15 because it's our job, and that's what we do. So we slept 2 hours, and so literally, I took the bag chairs and slid them over next to Ryan's trailer, and we got there probably 7 hours after they did, and we left probably 2 hours before they did. But
yeah, we actually got locked into Bristol. We were there so late that the security guy locked us in and said, I will come back in an hour and check on you guys, because we were there till 6 or 7 o'clock at night getting the transmission buttoned up.
And then E85, we had to drive 35 or 40 minutes north to get E.
Yep.
But the transmission was only like 126 degrees, so it was like not 190, on its way to failure again.
And Dustin and Steve will remember that's the year that we all went to the Betway Nationals. So
Or Betway.
Betway Nationals. So my family was flying down, so we had to have the car together. So we could, they had plane tickets and everything else to make that race at that national NHRA race.
Well, and the total spoiler about that is like commandeered a spare engine and had an engine in the bed of my truck and a cherry picker, because if something let go at drag week, we were going to just be like, okay, cool, get us back to where we need to go. And like, we'll put an engine in this thing to make it to the Betway Nationals. We never thought there was going to be an issue with the transmission.
Yeah.
That's the rule of racing, though, is if you have a spare, you won't break it.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I do want to talk about 850 perfect runs. Really, this class is kind of the only class that's really ET limited like that and really runs at that. I mean, obviously Street Machine Eliminator goes to 10-0, but those guys aren't trying to run 10-0s. They're trying to make the top 32. So, this class here is really one of the only ones that runs right up against that. So only 3 people in history.
I'm going to interrupt for a second, Mike. The other one, though, is Dean Anderson, because I think he needs to plug in this. So he went 8,500 in Pro Dial Your Own
for drag week.
Yeah,
So
I was talking about for drag week, though. Yeah, so Pro DYO. But again, in Pro DYO, if your car runs 930s, you can still win that class. You don't need you don't need to be at 850. But yeah, big shout out to Dean and Stephanie. Not really, her name's Jennifer. For running 8500 in Pro DYO at Sick Week. But in drag week history, Rick Steinke, Jim Braun, 2019, both those guys then, and then Dustin and Steve. It's 3 people in all of the class, and all the hundreds of people that have entered Street Race Power Adder, Street Race Small Block Power Adder have only run perfect passes. And then Brian, you guys have done it at Sick Week 24. Is that right?
Yes, and Bradenton.
Yeah. And that event, I don't have the numbers. I'm sure Derek Putnam will put them up here in just a minute. But there's only been like 4 or 5 done at Sick Week in its history. It's just
James Stahl did it the day before us, and then we went the next day
when he was in the other lane. I was racing him.
Yeah,
which is kind of ironic.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. I was in the pits when that happened, sadly, but obviously ran over. I have a great interview with you guys about that. It's pretty cool. I think that's what's been the most fun. It's like to be around when this stuff happens. Jennifer, sorry about that. I called me for a really long time. That's the inside joke about this. But yeah, that's a hard class. And since then, her and Dean have moved into the Street Race Small Block Power Adder class because they perform so well in Pro DYO. Pretty awesome. I mean, it's really pretty crazy when you start thinking about one thing Jay said early on in one of our interviews was that, it could be the difference in how you stage by 2 or 3 inches. Just that small amount of bump. With as much as I do with like Midwest Drag Race Series and stuff, as you see guys, the guy lining that person up and getting them into the beams is pretty important. A lot of times it just looks like they're up there just, hey, this is where the line is. But for you guys, I know Jay would probably get pretty nerdy on that stuff about, hey, this is exactly where you need to be each time so you can repeat it. Especially if you could run like a 498, 497, man, damn, I would hate to know that the placement of my big toe was the difference in running.
Well, yeah, especially when you talk about deep staging a car. I mean, these cars are, they're 1,000 horsepower vehicles, right? And so you deep stage a car. I mean, we've seen 60-foot differences. And as much as my guy Brian here is like, that can't be, it's like, I'm like, Brian, it was slow to 60. I'm like, we didn't have a run at it. You were like flickering the pre-stage bulb. I'm like, that has an impact on it. And I'm not saying that you don't know that, but what magnitude does it have on it? And nobody's going out there like, oh, I'm going to make 3 runs, like shallow staging and 3 runs deep staging to see, well, bracket racers might be doing that, but we're not out there to like go beat on the car to make 3 runs shallow staging, 3 runs deep staging to see like what that difference is. And I think, Mike, you've met the Ledfords that own Mid-Michigan, and he's like, at that power level, what did he say?
He thought it could be a couple hundreds.
Yeah, he thought it could be 2 to 3 numbers. And I was like, hey, when the cars slow down like this, or we're seeing that change, I'm like, that's, so as you mentioned, Mike, we are, the way the car builds boost and creeps in, every piece of it is a system.
Yeah, I intentionally have my bump set really, really soft. So, it might take me 4, 5, 6 hits of the button to get it to go in, but I want it to go in as, as consistent as possible. And I just try and get in as shallow as I can every time, just because that's the most consistent for me, at least anyways. But yeah, normally I'd speed the bump up a whole bunch, but you got to be exact every single time. Otherwise, wise, yeah, things change. Because like I said, these cars are fast enough that you're in a little deeper, a couple inches, whatever. I mean, that can be, half a hundredth or, 100th or more. If you're in real deep, makes a difference.
Man, that's awesome. All right, let's not give away too many secrets there. I do want to move on and get to our next setup here real quick. We got to do another ad read, and then we're going to jump into drag week stories and kind of the upcoming drag week and what we're going to see there. So if you guys will hang tight just a second, we'll run through some of this stuff. Again, want to say thanks to Molly Motorsport for their work with us. We really appreciate them. They actually, big shout out to them, came in clutch for Jason Hurley this last week. If you guys need some special pistons, if you need something that's kind of one-off stuff, these guys really can do it. They're pretty awesome, and they're not just sponsors of the program here. They're also racers. You can see Eric Grillo's Nova there on the side. Stick shift, almost a 9-second stick shift in a car. And then George Wright on the other side there in his Duster, long-time or multi-time drag week racer, probably coming back again this year. That car makes like 700 and something horsepower NA. So pretty awesome. Let's bring up Derek Putnam's comment here before we do move on. He said, caught me off guard. Overall count is 12 total, 8,500 runs in history. Hot Rod Drag Week, there's been 3. We talked about those earlier. Sick Week, there's been 3. Summer has also been 3. Midwest Drags with 2, and then Rocky Mountain Race Week with 1. I know the Rocky Mountain Race Week was Aaron Schiffer, and then oh man, that's a good one. Sick Week. I don't know if anybody's doubled up, to be honest. It would be Aaron Schaefer won at Rocky Mountain and won at Sick Week. I don't know. It'd be interesting. That's a great question. It's a great question, Roby. I'll make that note. Look at that later. Me and Derek will be nerding out as we go on here. So, all right. Again, thank you guys so much for being our race car friends. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the guys down here that are taking time out of their life to join us tonight and let us pick their brain and go through all kinds of stuff, and then hit the share button as we get in, because the next bit of stuff is going to be stories. It's going to be upcoming events, all that kind of stuff. So if you are here for that, please hang out. Thank you so much to our sponsors. They truly make all this possible. So if you're shopping and looking for parts, we would love it if you would hit these guys up. Summit Racing Equipment, obviously a big one here. They're sponsors of the show and the news. Deech Works down here, boy Mark Campbell actually is their sales director. I don't know what his professional title is, but he's a sales badass.
I sweep the floors.
Yeah. Love those guys. We're going to obviously see them at the Circuit 2026. We're going to go by their place, all that kind of stuff. So thanks to Deech Works, fuel systems that can, power 3,000 horsepower GTRs. Molly Motorsports, best pistons on the market, totally custom stuff. And regular, normal stock stuff if you need all that stuff. Driven Racing Oil, Howard's Cams, J-Wire Solutions, who's also down here below, not just a sponsor of the program, but also a racer and a supporter. AFCO Racing Products, love Eric Saffel and the team over there, our newest sponsors coming on board. Performer Built Transmissions, who we're going to get to see at Drag Week. I'm so excited to get a tour of the shop there. About 15 minutes from New Media Drag Week, which is one of the stops, so it's going to be awesome. Car Change 3D, Power Tube TV, WAF Racing, Sweet Patina with the best hand cleaning wipes on the market. I'm going to have some of those at Drag Week as well. And then Racing Junk Classifieds if you need some, car parts or a car, you can find it on Racing Junk. Dean Anderson here saying, didn't James Tall get 2 at Sick Week 2 days in a row? I don't think so. I don't think he did 2. I think he got really close when he was next to Brian and Jay, though.